Hi, I'm Dr. Boyce Watkins, and welcome to Your Black World. I'm here with my homegirl, my partner in crime, Miss Yvette Cornel. How you doing today, Yvette?
Doing good. How about you?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. Now, I'm worried. Your camera kept freezing when we were talking earlier, so I just want to tell people in advance, like, if Yvette's face just freezes like this, it'll be because she's just mean as hell, and also because the technology in Atlanta is just backwards and bootleg apparently because
and it's storming here. It's storming. It's just
oh,
lightning and
that too,
everything.
and it's storming. That's what they always. It's always storming down there. Every day it's storming. I'm playing. Okay, so you saw something that happened recently. Cornel West apparently was talking about Dyson again, and for a while he didn't really say anything. So you found something on GritTV where Cornel was actually talking about Dyson and kind of digging back into this old beef thing. What did you see?
Well, the on Grit TV, the host actually asked Cornel West, Laura Flanders, I think is her name, about the criticism from Dyson, where Dyson basically kind of took aim at West for how he was criticizing Obama for kind of not being polite enough and being too caustic in his criticisms. And Cornel West said, listen, I'm not the one who has kind of switched it up. I am the one who is standing by the principles that I've always had. And these are principles that Mr. Dyson used to have as well. When he called, and we can think back to when he called, Obama, a pharaoh. But he basically said, if you have a problem, with me standing up to power, if you have a problem with me, standing by these values or whatever, then we're just two different kind of black men. And that's what he said. He said we're two different kind of black men. And he said, you know, basically that Dyson is kind of projecting. It's a sort of narcissistic projection that Cornel West said he even found it kind of hard to read that 10,000 word piece because of he said it made him hurt a little bit because it was mostly projection that had very little to do with him really. So it was an interesting interview.
Oh, well, I do think first and foremost, I think it's just sad, to see this kind of back and forth, this divide, this tension. I don't think that it's working out well, really, for either one of them. I think that people are kind of looking at them and saying, what's wrong with you scholars? You guys are so self-absorbed that you're caught up in your petty little beefs, and you think the whole world cares about that, and the world doesn't. They don't want to hear their scholars fighting like this, at least not fighting with each other about each other's personality characteristics. And to that extent, I do agree in that it is very unfortunate to kind of see this. I do think that that Dyson really, I think, has to answer a little bit for the fact that he did this really dramatic flip flop on the Obama thing. I mean, you as you mentioned, he went from the whole Pharaoh comment, which a lot of people didn't like hearing that when he called Obama the Pharaoh, and then he went to being very, 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 very pro Obama. Helping him get elected, actually. Because remember, a lot of black people wouldn't even vote for Obama about a year before the election. It took some energy from people like the Dysons in the West to get black people to trust Obama. And then he goes into this whole tirade against Obama, where he seemed upset that he hadn't been invited to the White House. He mentioned that he said something about Obama running from race the way a black man runs from a cop. Just things that I would never say, even when I've been most angry at Obama, I would never say something like that. I felt like that was a little too harsh. But then he flips again to suddenly Obama can do no wrong, and unfortunately, what that gives the impression that somebody hooked you up, somebody took care of you, somebody gave you a chance to make some money or invited you to the White House or something like that. And when you show just how many times has Dyson been to the White House since the
Oh,
Obama was like?
it was over a dozen, I think, when I published that a while back, and it was over a dozen times, and I'm wondering what are you doing there? You know what I mean? I haven't seen anything that you've written extensively, where you've addressed your visit to the White House. So what are you doing? There, and that goes to his proximity to power and how these people kind of crave proximity to power as opposed to values which they have espoused, previously in books and pieces and articles. It's very easy to kind of do that, and then but when we get to crunch time, that's when you really tell who you are in terms of a black person, in terms of what you're willing to do for the black community and how you're willing to fight. So I think we're at crunch time now.
It does make you wonder, sometimes it seems like some of us might reject power when we don't have access to power. But when we do get access to power, then suddenly power becomes a good thing. It makes me think about integration. How you had a lot of black unity because we were all kind of shut out of certain opportunities, so we kind of had to stick together. But once you had desegregation and some degree of integration, you had some black folks that said, okay, I'm okay with the system. I just wasn't okay with the system when I was locked out of it. Now that I'm accepted by the system's okay with me, right? But then you had some black folks who stood back and still said, no, the system's still wrong because other people are being shut out of this. And it almost seems that that's kind of a way to describe the Cornel West Dyson kind of divide. And now in terms of why Dyson might be going to the White House, I can't imagine that this book he's writing about Obama, this epic book that's going to make him lots of money, doesn't have anything to do with this. I mean, to get whatever he's putting in this book, which I'm sure will include all kinds of, exclusive information, exclusive access to the president, that might explain why he's been going back and forth to the White House so much. I mean, what do you think?
Well, I think that could explain it, but here's the thing, and here's the test, and this is what it all came down to. There were a lot of people who, when Obama got elected, what we had was basically a black president who looked like us. And this forced people to make a choice. Are we going to be collective in terms of our race, or are we going to be collective in terms of our values and in terms of the things and the policies that are best for black people? You had people, unfortunately, like Michael Eric Dyson and Melissa Harris Perry, who chose race over principle. And even though this black man who was President Obama is black, he is the head of the most exploitive. What are the most exploitive, the most demagogic country in the world. This is America. We know how America has treated and continues to treat black people. We know what America has done in the third world. So the idea that you would choose to side with this man as he is kind of lording over empire, as opposed to siding with the millions of black and brown people in this country and throughout the rest of the world is actually kind of heartbreaking. And I think what you saw Cornel West do was say, you know what, I'm going to make the sacrifice. I'm going to take all the heat, that I'm going to get from my community, and I'm going to try to do the right thing for my community, even if there are people in my community who are still like, I don't kind of get why you're going at this guy, because they'll get it later. And then you had others who said, you know what, I'm going to get what I can get from this guy being in the White House. I'm going to take what I can take, make the money that I can make, and I'm going to move on. And so I think, you have a you have a demarcation point where you see people who are willing to take the heat from really standing up to power, no matter who the face of power is, they're going to stand up to it. And people who are like, you know what, I'm going to get my paper. And so I think that is the difference here. You have seen certain people rise. You've had Michael Eric Dyson rise, and he's done better. Because he hasn't criticized the president. You saw way back when Tavis Smiley take heat. I remember, I think I said this on a previous conversation. Tavis Smiley got canceled from a MLK speech. On the MLK, he was supposed to go speaking fees. You've seen these people, regardless of their own problems. Tavis Smiley has his own issues, and I'm not saying that he's a perfect person. I'm talking about this Obama issue right now. When you look at that, what you see is that some of us were willing to sacrifice based on principle, and some of us were not. And I think you're right when you say that, well, people get access to power and they're not critical of power anymore. And that's what when you look at a lot of black people and you look at, why this person sell out? I thought they were about this. No, they were never really about that. What they were about was not getting caught up in it themselves. They were not about, ending racism. They just didn't want it to impact their family and themselves. So once you do that, once you insulate certain black people from that, they're okay. And so I think that's what we're looking at now when we look at Dyson and West. I think that's the debate.
It almost leads to, just two competing definitions of black unity. What is black unity? There are some people who see black unity as, we're going to support Obama no matter what he does. He's a black man in the White House. We must stick together to maintain and support his power and trust him to use his power in the best way that he sees fit, which is more of kind of almost like an aristocracy kind of model. The Obamas have become kind of this de facto royal family, if you will, for the black community. In England, for example, you have people that believe in protecting the royal family no matter what they do, no matter what mistakes they make. But then you have another definition of black unity that says, forget the royal family. Their well-being is not as important as the well-being of the masses. Now, if they are using that power to elevate and support the masses of black people, then we will support them. But if they're not using their power to support and elevate the state of being for the masses, then we can't support them because you become an enemy to that which we deem to be most important. And I think it's important for people in public spaces, yourself, myself, Dyson, West, anybody like that, to really figure out who do you play for, what team are you on? Because I had to ask myself that question. Where's my base mentally? Where's my loyalty going to lie? And I realized that my loyalty, because some people, the loyalty lies with the dollar bill. Like you hear rappers like Jay-Z talk about money over everything. You have people whose loyalty lies with playing for the winning team. Whoever's got the most power at the time, whoever's most popular, I'm going to roll with that. You got some people who say, my loyalty is with the people. That's what I decided. So when I decide who I want to criticize and who I want to ride with, I have to figure out the common denominator. Okay, I have loyalty to black people, so is this person in alignment with that particular ideology? If the answer is yes, then I can work with them. If the answer is no, then we might have a problem. And it doesn't mean you hate the person. It just means you might have to say, look, I disagree with you. And I think that with Cornel West, it almost seems like if you really slice and dice the pushback he's received from namely Dyson and Melissa Harris Perry, I think that much of their pushback can be segmented to at least two pieces. One is their personal resentment over the fact that Cornel West didn't just criticize Obama, he also criticized them for supporting Obama, right? Which you can ask whether or not Cornel had to actually do that. If he could just speak out against Obama or speak out against Obama's policies. In fact, you could even slice into three pieces. You could talk about the policies, the president, and the people that support the president's policies no matter what. So Cornel West kind of hit all three. He said, I don't like the policies, I don't like the man, I don't like the people that support this man. And I think that then has formed the foundation of the critique that Harris Perry and Dyson came back with, because I think that they were pissed off. Look, you're talking about me, you're talking about my mama, you're saying I'm a sellout, you're saying I'm this, and this, and whether or not Cornel had to do that, I don't know. But then the second piece that they directly pursued that they didn't have to do, which was to support the president, to just sort of, say, look, I stand with Obama. This is why Obama's a good guy. You shouldn't be criticizing Obama. In that case, you can be criticized because you're carrying the water for a politician who hasn't really shown that he cares a whole lot about what happens to black people. But then the third piece, which is kind of missing, which I don't really hear very often when I hear the people that get upset with Cornel West, is the policy. They'll talk about, Cornel and why he attacked them personally. If you read Dyson's 10,000-word essay, which I think most of us agree that thing was just too damn long to be talking about yourself. You can't do that, man. You have to make this about the people. He talked a lot about Cornel's attacks on him and how they were petty, childish, nasty, vicious, etc. He talked about Cornel's attacks on Obama and why this makes Cornel into a bad person. But I don't really recall him really providing very clear arguments as to why Obama's right on policy, why Obama really is the president for the people. Because this could all be resolved. If Obama simply fought a little harder on poverty, mass incarceration, and addressed some of those critiques Cornel has, then a lot of Cornel's critiques will be washed away. But instead of doing that, they focus more so on attacking the person as opposed to what he's actually saying. And I think that's what makes a lot of this very disingenuous. What do you think of that?
No, I think that there was. I think that's what most people pointed out, that there was no answer in terms of Dyson's critique of Cornel West. There was no answer of Cornel West's main critique, which is of Obama's policy. He didn't answer that, and he pretended to act as if people were just going to skate over that. But I do think for Dyson, this is personal. I do think Dyson, when Cornel West said we're living in the age of the sellout, we all knew exactly who he was talking about. And it wasn't just Michael Eric Dyson. There are a lot of black people who are doing this. I was reading a book the other day that was written after the Clinton administration, where a bunch of, from April Ryan to Tom Joyner, a bunch of black people were gushing about Bill Clinton. This is the guy who put, who mass incarceration, this welfare, gutted welfare reform and all of that. So you see a lot of that. You see even more of that during this administration between by the elite, by people like Dyson. And so I think Cornel West was calling that out. Now people can say, I have criticized Cornel West language. But let's be clear, Cornel West isn't the first person to do this. Malcolm X went at it. You know what I mean? He didn't mince words with you. And so when you look at that, I think Cornel West is right when he says, "Listen, we're two different kind of black men. When I see unfairness, I call it out. I don't cuddle up to it and kiss it goodnight." You know, and I think that's what people are focusing on. And let me just say one other thing. You know, a friend of mine brought this up to me, you know, shortly before the call, that Cornel West actually helped Dyson, was like his mentor. He actually helped Melissa Harris Perry. These are people that he helped who decided to turn their back on him for a president who turned his back on Black America. I mean, how can you feel about that? How should you feel emotionally about being there for Black people? You know, basically mentoring them. And when you know when powerful people come into play, a Black man that you've only known 2 seconds, you cozy up to him and pull a blade on me. So I understand how he could feel bitter about that. So I think people, even if you believe Cornel West is bitter, I think you have to give him a pass on that because he has reason to be that way.
Well, you know, I mean, that is a good point. I mean, from what I understand, neither one of them would have had any opportunity to be at Princeton had it not been for Cornel West. Is that correct? I mean, I think that Cornell was one of the key players in was it African American Studies that they or something like that. Sure. Yeah, he put it this way: he had a lot of power in the department when Melissa Harris Perry was hired, and I believe that he was responsible for bringing her in. And then Dyson, I believe he got his PhD at Princeton, or he studied there, or taught there, or something like that. And Cornel West was largely responsible for that as well. So, and I have to look at the bios just to be sure. But I know they all have this Princeton thing. And from what I understand, Cornell was one of the key players to help them achieve that. And so I think that does say something about, you know, the fact that this man did clear a path for you. And even though he may have, you could argue that maybe he got out of line or he went overboard or went a little bit hard in his critique. But maybe there's something to be said about just respecting him as the OG. He's the guy that hooked you up, and maybe you just need to be quiet. I know that there are certain people who could criticize me, who could say something about disagreeing with me, and I don't really know if I would say anything. Cornel West is one because he's helped me so much. You know, Louis Farrakhan, even Dyson, really. You know, these are people where if I was to counterattack, I would be very cautious about it. It wouldn't just sort of be this very nasty, direct, I'm going to destroy you kind of thing, because I don't know if that's the best way to show respect. But then again, though, you know, I guess all the gloves are off, so everybody's going to fight. But I think at the end of the day, people have to make their own decision. And I encourage people to look at the policy, look at the, you know, what's happening with Black people, and then make a decision from there. All this other stuff seems to be petty to me.
Yeah, I think it's fine for scholars to debate. But the problem that I have a lot of times, you know, with Dyson, even in terms of that 10,000 word piece, you address like the window dressing. Like the biggest issue is policy, and you didn't make a case for why we should be on board with Barack Obama. That was the case. Cornel West has been making the case from drones to income inequality, you know, he's been making the case for why we should not support this president, because this president is just as bad, if not worse, than every white Republican president who's come before him. That is the case that Cornel West has made. I have yet to see Michael Eric Dyson or anybody else deconstruct that case, and that's what I'm looking for. Unless you're going to tell me what Cornel West is saying is substantively not true, then don't say anything, because you're not doing the work of a scholar. That's what scholars do. They break down the facts. They bring it in. They bring in the footnotes, cliff notes, and break it down. If you're going to do that with me, we can have a conversation. If you just want to talk about inauguration tickets and how nobody knew Cornel West's phone number, I don't want to hear it.
Well, you know, I think you said it all. Well, it'll be interesting to see how this evolves. I personally think that maybe we're just at a point where Dyson and West shouldn't talk about each other. I think that the conversation should center around the issues that matter, as you said, and I think that's it.
Let me just, I know you're getting ready to end it up, but I just want to say one thing. During the end of the video, Cornel West actually said, Black America, you know, has more important things to deal with than two narcissistic, you know, a kind of narcissistic intellectual, you know, conversation about two Negro intellectuals. So I think he's on the same page, too.
Well, I think so. I think you're right. It'll be interesting to see how this shapes up. You know, I know Dyson's got his Obama book coming out. And again, I don't think books like that get written without a lot of inside help. My perception of the Obama administration is that they only help you at that magnitude if you play ball And playing ball for them means being willing to lie, steal, and kill to support whatever it is that they tell you to support. In which case you're carrying water for the administration, carrying it back to the black community, which means, to me, that you kind of work for the president. You don't necessarily work for the people anymore, unless you believe that the president works for the people, in which case you convince yourself that you're doing the right thing. And I think that that's something that anybody can debate. And that's all I'm going to say about that. Well, thanks a lot, Yvette. It was very good talking to you.
Not a problem. Appreciate being here.
All right, well, everybody, Yvette Cornel wrote a really good article about this on breakingbrown.com, so I hope you'll go check that out. And I'm from Your Black World, and don't forget we have a new film out called Resurrecting Black Wall Street, which you can check out the trailer of at resurrectingblackwallstreet.com. That's resurrectingblackwallstreet.com. Until we meet again, please stay strong, be blessed, and be educated. We are gone. Peace.